Welcome to EduCasts, home of EduCasters. The method, the scientific method as a way of life. If you walk into an instrumentalist classroom, you won't see a teacher lecturing. You will see students solving problems. Dewey believed that the scientific method wasn't just for chemistry labs. He believed it was the blueprint for how the human mind solves any problem. He broke it down into 5 steps of reflective thinking. This is the core method of instrumentalist teaching. A felt difficulty. Learning starts with a snag. You are doing something and it stops working. The bike chain falls off. The plant dies. The math problem doesn't make sense. You feel confusion. This is similar to the constructivist disequilibrium. 2. Locating and defining the problem. You stop and look. Why did the plant die? Was it water? Was it sun? Was it bugs? You turn a vague feeling into a specific question. 3. Suggested solutions. Hypothesis. You brainstorm. Maybe if I move it to the window. Maybe if I water it less. You use your imagination to come up with potential tools to solve the problem. 4. Reasoning, mental testing. You think it through. If I water it less, but the soil is already dry, that doesn't make sense. So it must be the sun. You use logic to filter your ideas. 5. Observation and experiment. Testing. You actually do it. You move the plant. You wait. You watch. Did it work? Dewey argued that all subjects should be taught this way. History. Don't memorize dates. Start with a problem. Why are there so many homeless people in our city? Then use history as a tool to dig back and find the roots of the problem. Form a hypothesis about how to fix it. Math. Don't do worksheets. Start with a problem. We need to build a ramp for the school stage. Use geometry as the tool to figure out the angles and the load-bearing requirements. In this model, the subject matter, math, history, science, is not the target. It is the resource you pull off the shelf to solve the mystery. The teacher, the senior investigator. So if the students are doing all this active problem solving, what does the teacher do? The instrumentalist teacher is not a dictator, realism, and not just a distinct cheerleader, romanticism. The teacher is the senior investigator. Imagine a group of scientists working in a lab. There is an older, experienced scientist and a bunch of brilliant but inexperienced junior scientists. The senior scientist, the teacher, knows the equipment better, knows where the dangerous chemicals are, knows the history of the experiments, doesn't do the work for the juniors, but guides them so they don't blow up the lab. Dewey said the teacher's job is to select the experiences. You can't just let kids do whatever they want. That's chaos. The teacher has to be smart enough to set up a situation, like a store project or a garden or a debate, that will naturally force the students to run into the problems the teacher wants them to solve. The teacher sets the trap. The students fall into the felt difficulty, and then the teacher guides them out, using the tools of knowledge. The social side, democracy in action. We cannot finish this talk on instrumentalism without talking about democracy. For Dewey, democracy wasn't a political system we vote in every 4 years. It was a way of living together. It was the ultimate instrument for human growth. Why? Because democracy assumes that everyone has something to contribute to the solution. In a dictatorship, only one guy does the thinking. That's a waste of everyone else's brainpower. In a democracy, we pool our intelligence. We try ideas. If they work, we keep them. If they don't, we vote them out. Democracy is the scientific method applied to society. Therefore, the school must be a miniature democracy. If schools are authoritarian dictatorships, do what I say, sit down, shut up, how can we expect them to produce citizens who know how to participate in a democracy? Instrumentalist schools emphasize group work, negotiation, and social responsibility. Students learn that their actions affect the group. They learn that truth is often something we have to work out together. A critique, the tool without a heart? Instrumentalism conquered American education. If you walk into a school today and see project-based learning, inquiry-based science, or social-emotional learning, you are looking at Dewey's grandchildren. But like all philosophies, it has fierce critics. 1. The anti-intellectual charge. Critics, especially essentialists, who are cousins of realists, argue that instrumentalism watered down American education. They say, you spent so much time problem-solving and growing that the kids don't actually know anything. If you spend 6 weeks building a ramp to learn geometry, you might understand angles really well, but you might have missed 90% of the other geometry theorems that you would have covered in a lecture. Critics argue that instrumentalism produces students who are active but ignorant. 2. The problem of what works. Instrumentalism says we should do what works. But works for whom and for what goal? The Nazis had an education system that worked really well to produce loyal soldiers. If we don't have objective moral truths, realism, or spiritual idealism, how do we know if our growth is in the right direction? Critics argue that instrumentalism is too focused on the process and lacks a moral compass. It tells you how to drive the car, but it doesn't tell you where you should go. 3. The loss of beauty. Not everything is a tool. Sometimes a poem is just a poem. It doesn't solve a problem. It doesn't fix a felt difficulty. It's just beautiful. Instrumentalism can be a bit utilitarian. If you ask an instrumentalist, why teach Shakespeare, they might say, to improve vocabulary and empathy skills. A lover of literature would say, no, teach it because it touches the soul. Instrumentalism struggles to justify art for art's sake. It always wants to find a use for beauty, which can feel like cheapening it. Despite the criticisms, instrumentalism remains the dominant spirit of American schooling because it matches the American spirit. We are a pragmatic people. We like results. We like action. In a world that is changing faster than ever, with AI, climate change, and global interconnection, the old idea of downloading facts seems less and less relevant. The facts change too fast. The map of 1920 is useless. Instrumentalism offers a different promise. It says, I cannot tell you what the world will look like in 20 years. I cannot give you a map that will stay accurate. But I can give you a compass. I can give you a method of thinking. I can give you the confidence to face a problem, break it down, test a solution, and learn from the result. An instrumentalist educator looks at a student and doesn't see a bucket to be filled. They see a traveler packing for a long, unpredictable journey. And the educator's job is simply this: to make sure that when the student walks out the door, their backpack is filled with the best, sharpest, and most durable tools we have to offer.